At 32 in my hometown, people say I'm past my prime for marriage. Most of my peers are already settled, some even with 3 kids. But me? It's not that I'm unattractive. Maybe it's just fate, or maybe that's how life works sometimes. After high school, I didn't go to college. I knew I wasn't academically gifted, and my family couldn't afford the tuition anyway. So I moved to Hanoi and worked as a waitress. Back then, kids from our rural area either studied abroad or skipped college altogether. Everyone was eager to go to the city, so I followed that trend, hoping to build a life of my own. After 3 years of hustle and chaos, the noise of city life got to me. It wasn't for me. I'm not wired for the constant rush. So I moved back home. While in Hanoi, I dated a guy 2 years older than me. We were together for 6 months before breaking up. Some people might understand my reason, others would call me old-fashioned. We were serious, and he made it clear he wanted to take things further, physically. But I kept saying no. He was patient at first. But after the second, third, and fourth rejection, he accused me of not loving him. And just like that, the texts started thinning out, until one day, they just stopped. No closure, no goodbye. It was over without a word. I'll admit, I was heartbroken. I clung on for a while, hoping he'd come back. But eventually, I had to accept it was over. Then at 24, I fell in love again, this time with a local government worker. We were together for nearly 3 years when he suddenly announced he was leaving me, said he didn't love me anymore. Unlike the first time, I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I thanked him for his honesty. If love is gone, there's no use forcing it. But then I heard he married the daughter of a city bank director just 2 months later, and that made me laugh. Bitterly. After those 2 relationships, I haven't dated anyone since. I've learned to be okay on my own. Taking care of my 60-something-year-old mother is more than enough for me. My mom's life hasn't been easy either. She was the eldest of 5 siblings. Her father, my grandfather, died in the war. My grandma worked herself to the bone just to feed her children. And my mom, as the oldest, stepped into the role of caretaker, like a second mother to her siblings. And now, after everything, my youngest uncle, the baby of the family, has been fighting her over inherited land. He even screamed at her and once threatened her with a knife. Mom told me that before Grandma died, she made sure the youngest son had a house. The 3 sisters were all married off. Since Mom never married, she stayed in the old family home right next to a small pond. That pond was technically hers. But now my uncle wants it, because it sits near the main road and would fetch a good price. Mom didn't care about the money, she just wanted to keep the peace. So she gave him the pond. But I could tell. It broke her heart. As for me, people say I'm the child of a single mother. It's whispered like a stain. I heard Mom once had a deep, passionate love with a man from a neighboring village. They made promises, talked about forever, but in the end, he married someone else. When I was born, people sneered at her behind her back, but she never gave up. She raised me with strength and pride. She gave me a life, even if it meant enduring shame and hardship. Just this evening, as I came home from work, there she was, sitting at the doorstep, waiting. She smiled and said, "So the working girl finally comes home, huh?" Her tone was light, but I could feel she had something on her mind. "I've got something important to talk to you about," she said. I laughed, took off my helmet, and brought over the bag of oranges I'd bought. "These are sweet, Mom." "Everyone at work says so." "How much per pound?" she asked. "About 60 cents, I said. I got more than a pound. The girls at work bought like 5 pounds each to stock up." "Oh, why buy so much? I don't even eat oranges like that," she said, already acting like I'd wasted money. That's just Mom. She still thinks it's the old days when every cent counted. But things are different now. I have a job. We're not struggling anymore. "So, what was that important thing you wanted to tell me?" I asked. She hesitated. "Then, earlier today, Aunt Ngo stopped by. She wants to introduce you to a guy from Hanoi." "Aunt Ngo?" I asked. "You mean the one from the top of the village? She's been working in Hanoi for decades now." I sighed, already knowing where this was going. I sat down next to Mom under the porch. The sun had just dipped behind the hills and dusk was settling in. It felt quiet, intimate, just the 2 of us. "She says the guy's decent," Mom continued. "His name's Din, 35, lives with his mother. His younger sister's already married." I paused. Then said softly, "Mom, I just want to live like this." With you. Maybe in a few years I'll have a child on my own, raise them myself, so when we grow old we won't be lonely. She reacted immediately. No, absolutely not. Her voice cracked, and tears welled up in her eyes. Don't you see what my life has been, child? Being a woman without a husband, it's hard. It's lonely. It's full of judgment and regret. Her voice trembled as she remembered. She spoke of sleepless nights spent nursing me through fevers, of watching other children tease me for not having a father, of the pain in her heart when I once asked innocently, "Mom, where's my dad? Why don't I have one like the other kids?" She looked straight into my eyes and said, "Please, sweetheart, if you can, get married. Don't suffer like I did. You're so beautiful. You deserve love too. I know, sweetheart, that you've already gone through painful emotional turns in love. I just hope that doesn't make you lose sight of the happiness that comes with being a wife," my mother said, her voice gentle but steady. "I'm afraid you'll be sad if I tell you this, but I once considered getting remarried when you were 3. The man I was seeing didn't want me to bring you along, so I said no. Back then I thought it was better for you to have a father figure, and for me to have someone to lean on. But look at us now, just the two of us, still together after all these years." I never cared about what the neighbors said. Let them gossip about a woman raising a child alone. I've been through it all, and that's why I want to give you the best advice I can. Hearing her words, I had to admit something. Though my mother had little formal education, her thinking was surprisingly sharp and open-minded. Reflecting on her life, I realized how much she had suffered. She loved deeply and gave everything to her siblings and family, yet life always seemed to deal her the short end of the stick. "Mom, if I get married, who'll take care of you?" I asked quietly. "You're still healthy now, but what about later when you get older and frailer?" "Don't worry about me," she replied with a smile. "There are always ways. Besides, I'm still just an hour from Hanoi. You can come visit whenever you want." 2 months later, I married into my new family. I had never imagined I'd marry someone I didn't love, but fate had its own plans. In Vietnam, we call it being tied together by the red thread of destiny. My first impression of my husband Ding was that he was handsome. At 35, he had the quiet, rugged look of a grown man, but his eyes carried a sadness, something heavy, distant. That's probably why he didn't talk much. He only responded when someone asked, and even then, his answers felt a little off, like he wasn't fully present. Later, his mother, Mrs. Thu, told me everything. He used to be a top student, graduating with honors in information technology from Hanoi University of Science and Technology. He worked at Viettel, a major telecom corporation, but then he had a mental breakdown, severe depression. He had to quit and undergo treatment. Though he's better now, he's still not completely back to normal. Sometimes he just sits quietly, talking or laughing to himself, humming old children's songs. The shadows haven't fully lifted. That first night in my new home, I cleaned up until past 10 p.m. before returning to our bedroom. Din was already fast asleep. I tiptoed around, picked up my nightclothes, and headed to the bathroom. A hot shower at the end of such a long day felt like heaven. Refreshed, I came back to the room, arranged some of my things, and finally climbed into bed. I fell asleep quickly. I didn't feel strange sleeping next to a man I barely knew. He was my husband, after all. As I slept, unaware, he stirred. Bathed in the soft light of the bedside lamp, he slowly sat up and turned to look at me. After a while, he reached out gently and moved a few strands of hair away from my face. Then he quietly got up, grabbed a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, and stepped outside. The next morning, I was jolted awake by loud knocking on the door. Disoriented, I sat up, realizing I was no longer just someone's daughter. I was now a daughter-in-law. I rushed to the door. My mother-in-law stood there, her eyes scanning me from head to toe with a disapproving frown. Without a word, she walked right into the room. I followed her hesitantly. She stood by the bed, eyeing the white sheets, then asked flatly, "Just woke up." "Yes, ma'am." "So, how was your wedding night?" she asked, her tone sharp. "The sheets are still spotless. Not a single mark." "Care to explain that?" My heart thudded in my chest. I stammered. "We were both exhausted, so we just went to sleep." She turned, eyes piercing. "Go prepare breakfast." "Yes, ma'am." I nodded quickly. Just as she turned to leave, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for me to hear, "If it weren't for the need to have a grandson to carry on the family name, I would never have accepted such a country bumpkin as my daughter-in-law." My eyes widened in disbelief. On the day of the engagement, she had been all smiles. What happened? It felt like she had flipped her personality overnight, faster than flipping a pancake. Just then, Din stepped out of the bathroom. He looked at me without any expression and said simply, "You know what to do. Go downstairs and make breakfast." I tied up my hair, washed up, and hurried downstairs. Under my mother-in-law's strict instructions, I finally managed to prepare a breakfast that suited her taste, on the fourth try at frying an egg. No one spoke during the meal. The silence hung heavy in the air. After breakfast, Din went off to the neighborhood gate to chat and play chess with some local men. I cleaned up and returned to the living room, where my mother-in-law was waiting. "Sit down," she said firmly. Once I was seated, she launched into it. "You know," she said, "a girl from the countryside landing a city boy like Din is like a mouse scoring a piece of gold. Before he had mental issues, he dated college graduates, teachers, doctors. None of them were good enough for me, though." I listened quietly, trying not to flinch. But now that he's not who he used to be, all my hopes for him have gone up in smoke. So here we are. You've been brought in to give this family a proper grandson. That's your job. Got it? She paused, her eyes narrowing. "What's the matter?" "Can't answer me. Don't tell me you think I'm being unreasonable." "No, it's not that I don't understand what Mom means, but the way I am, I like things clean and tidy, so the house always has to be spotless. When guests come over, I want to know exactly who they are, not just anyone walking in. So I have to be careful not to let strangers in without permission." At that moment, my mother-in-law's phone rang. I couldn't tell who was calling, but after she answered, she stood up. Before leaving, she reminded me, "You don't have to cook for anyone else today. Just prepare something for the two of you." "Yes, ma'am," I replied, watching her walk away until she disappeared behind the gate. Now I understood that warm, genuine smile she gave when she came to ask for my hand in marriage. It was all an act. Only after she secured a wife for her son did her true nature come out. Thinking this, I smirked slightly. It seemed like my chances in this game were slim. When she came to ask for my hand, she told me her son had passed away 3 years ago from cancer. Her younger sister, Hoi Thuong, had previously worked at a bank but left after getting married to manage a chain of restaurants with her husband. She also runs a cosmetics business. They have a 3-year-old daughter, nicknamed Su. Mom mentioned that my own mother had some concerns about this marriage, but for some reason, the moment I met him, looked into his eyes, I felt an inner pull to do something, to not abandon him. And that's how I became who I am now. So even if I am a bit impulsive at 32, I'm going to take full responsibility for this gamble. Everyone says I'm gentle, well-behaved, and reasonable, so maybe if I just keep my patience in this house, everything will settle down. Just as I finished cooking the rice and was about to go outside, my husband asked, "Where's your mom?" "She went out," I replied. "She said she's having lunch with a friend, so it's just the two of us today." I added, "Since I'm your wife now, the one who will live with you for life, I feel we shouldn't keep too much distance between us." Summoning all my courage, I brushed off my shyness, put on a mock surprised look, and then turned to go upstairs. I stopped dead in my tracks, feeling embarrassed. My cheeks burned red, and I had to cover my face with my hands, then turned back to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Later that afternoon, my mom returned with Hoi Thuong. She walked in, glanced at me with a look of disdain, then went straight to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of cold water, drank it down in one gulp, and walked out again. "Mom, I'm home," I said. "Why don't you stay and hang out for a bit?" she asked. "No, I have some things to take care of," I replied. At that, Hoi Thuong shot me a sharp look. "Our family isn't poor. Mom even bought new clothes for you and your sister-in-law, didn't she? If you don't dress well, people will talk." My mother-in-law joined in, glancing at me and saying, "I know. I'll tell her to get some new clothes tomorrow." I looked down at the outfit I was wearing. It was brand new, just bought, but in their eyes, I must have looked tacky. It's true. When you're poor in a rich world, you feel like you're constantly out of place. That was my culture shock on the very first day as a daughter-in-law. At 8:30 p.m., my mother-in-law called me to her room to massage her feet. It wasn't until after 9 that I finally got back to my own room, my hands and arms utterly exhausted. My husband was already asleep. Earlier, she had urged me to try hard to have a baby soon so she could hold her grandchild. But with me always going to bed before him, how was that going to happen? I slipped quietly into the bathroom, brushed my teeth, then crawled into bed beside him. In my mind, swirling thoughts haunted me. What's the point of getting married if it's like having nothing at all? Maybe it's because there's no love in this marriage. That night, I woke up and saw my husband still sound asleep. Just then, there was a knock on the door again. Fearing waking him, I got up quietly and opened it. Like this morning, it was my mother-in-law. She didn't say a word, just walked straight into the room and stood by our bed. I noticed her eyes fixed on the bedsheet where I had been lying. I looked too and saw a red stain. Before I could ask what it was, she smiled approvingly at me. "If you're tired, you should sleep more. I won't make breakfast." "Yes, ma'am," I said, still confused. She left, and I stared at the bloodstain on the sheet. Could it be my period? I rushed to the bathroom to check, but there was nothing. I even examined my arms and legs for scratches, but found nothing unusual. So where did that blood come from? Coming out of the bathroom, I found my husband awake and sitting on the bed. I pointed to my hand and the red mark and asked, "Where did this come from? Are you bleeding?" He looked at me with indifference, neither surprised nor concerned, and said, "I don't know." It had been a week since I became a daughter-in-law, and I had started looking for a job. I've now been working for over a month at a noodle shop near the house, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. My mother-in-law doesn't like me working there, but lets me since I don't have a degree. She figures staying home without earning anything would be awkward for both sides. As for my husband, he's always wandering in the mornings, sometimes watching kids play chess at the corner of the street or just hanging out. But whenever we're alone in the room, he seems serious and distant. I asked him about it, but he just brushed me off, acting like I was invisible. Today, at work, as soon as I sat down and reached under the table for my bag, one of my coworkers slipped and fell. She was carrying a bowl of hot soup that spilled almost entirely onto my back. I screamed in shock. People nearby rushed to help. Luckily, the bowl was small, so the burn wasn't too bad. At first, it hurt a lot, but after applying some herbal ointment, I felt a bit better. That's where I am now. I came home utterly exhausted. The cafe had been packed all day. When I stepped inside, I saw my mother-in-law sitting with some friends. I greeted each of them politely. After I finished, one of the older women asked, "You just got back from work, right, dear?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied. Another woman sized me up from head to toe and then told my mother-in-law, "Lou is really picky, you know. I introduced her to that guy before. He's a kindergarten teacher, but she refused him. Said his family had too many siblings or something." "I don't like to talk about it," my mother-in-law said quietly, then glanced at me. She said, "Why don't you go help me tidy up in the kitchen? It's a bit messy in there." "Yes, ma'am," I answered and went into the kitchen. I sighed as I took in the scene before me. An empty hot pot on the table, scraps of food scattered on the floor. It looked like they just had a small party. I rolled up my sleeves, gathered the trash, threw it in the bin, then collected the bowls and chopsticks to wash them. After cleaning the dishes, I swept and wiped down the tables and floors. It took a while, but finally the kitchen looked spotless again. I let out a long breath, dragging my tired feet upstairs, tuning out the laughter and chatter coming from the living room. I opened the door to my room, went out onto the balcony, and gently stroked the gray cat sitting on my lap. We didn't keep cats at home, probably a neighbor's, but I liked cats. Mom-in-law was allergic to cat fur, so there was no way to have one inside. I guessed my husband wanted some quiet, so I changed clothes quietly and climbed into bed to rest. Since Luong had burned his back, I had to lie on my side to avoid putting pressure on the injury. That evening, Huai Thuong brought Susu over to visit and stay for dinner. Even though she was a kid, Susu was very energetic, running all over the place, until she tripped and burst into loud, heart-wrenching cries. The whole house became chaotic. I was in the kitchen cutting chicken when Susu suddenly ran in and jumped on my back. The sharp pain from my burn shot through me, and by reflex, I dropped the knife and pushed her off gently. I stood up quickly, trying not to hurt her. But when I turned around, Susu had fallen hard and started crying loudly. Hoi Tuong rushed in, panic written all over her face. She scooped Susu up and comforted her, saying, "Shh! It's okay, sweetheart. Stop crying now. Mommy loves you so much." But Susu kept crying, pointing her tiny hand at me, crying. "It was the lady. She pushed me down." I shook my head repeatedly, trying to explain, "No, it wasn't like that." Hoi Tuong glared at me, raising her voice. "Are you still going to deny it? I saw you push her. You're being cruel." Before I could finish, my mother-in-law came in and asked, "What's going on? Why is Susu crying again?" Hoi Tuong answered right away, "Your precious daughter-in-law pushed Susu down because she didn't want us two to play together." I said, "I didn't mean to. My back hurts. That's why I pushed her away to avoid touching the burn." Before I finished, Hoi Tuong said to my mother-in-law, "I'm taking my niece home now. I can't stand being around my sister-in-law." "Don't say that, dear," my mother-in-law said. Then she turned to me with obvious displeasure in her eyes. "Why are you still standing there? Go apologize to the child now." "Yes, ma'am," I replied. Even though I didn't feel I'd done anything wrong, I followed her order and apologized. I wasn't angry, just sad. Sad because maybe in their eyes, I was always an outsider, never truly part of the family, which explained the harshness and unfairness I faced. After that incident, I stayed silent the whole evening. After dinner, I cleaned up and went straight to my room. That's when Din finally asked me, "What's wrong with your back?" "It's nothing," I said. "Then why did you say your back hurt earlier?" "You weren't there," I said. I spoke loudly outside, so he must have overheard. "Oh, that makes sense. It's good he knows you're being treated unfairly." I couldn't explain why I suddenly snapped at Din. His eyes were so deep and mesmerizing that once I looked into them, I couldn't look away. He asked, "Why did you agree to marry me?" I answered honestly, because I felt very lonely and wanted to do something about it. "Are you calling me crazy?" he joked. "Sometimes I act like a lunatic or get lost in my dreams." Din smiled crookedly. "I get it now. The crazy one is you, not me." He moved closer, speaking softly. "What happened to Luong's burn? It was from hot soup." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Din said, "I'm not sure. The doctor said it should heal, so let's go to sleep now." I smiled, realizing now I could be certain. My husband wasn't crazy or cold-hearted. He just hadn't opened up to me yet, but I believed one day he would. It had been 3 months since I became part of this family, and I was slowly adjusting. That weekend was my grandmother's memorial back in my hometown. I asked my mother-in-law for permission to visit, and she agreed. I also invited Din to come along. When I mentioned it, my mother frowned, clearly unhappy, but the next day she nodded in approval. At work, my colleague Hang asked, "Diu, are you going home tomorrow?" "Yes." "Why?" "I'm glad. You're the only one I get along with at work. Now that you're off for 3 days, I don't know who I'll hang out with." "I talked with some of the older ladies at work. They're fun too." "Yeah, but I like you the best." I smiled at Hang's words. She reminded me a lot of myself years ago, a small-town girl fresh out of high school moving to the city, but she seemed more confident and ambitious. I once asked her about her future plans. Her eyes sparkled with determination. "I want to work here for a few years, save some money, then go back home to open a clothing store. My dream is to be my own boss." I thought, well, maybe she's already on her way there. I didn't have much in my hands, but I really believed in that saying. A lively girl like her would surely find success soon. That afternoon, I didn't head straight home, but walked nearly 2 kilometers to buy some Hanoi green rice flakes home as gifts for the family back in the countryside. By evening, I was folding the clothes to pack into my backpack since I was going to stay 3 full days at home. I had prepared 3 sets of clothes for each of us, just to be sure. This trip wasn't just about comforting Grandma. I also wanted him to relax and clear his mind. Staying cooped up at home playing chess all day had to get boring. Even though the owner of the faux place had given me just 2 days off, I'd begged for an extra day. Any extra day was a blessing. If she'd allowed a whole week, I'd probably have taken it. Right then, Dink was in the bathroom. I told him, "Take 3 sets of clothes home with you. Check if you need anything else." He said, "No, that's enough." I reminded him, "Your hometown is poor, so don't get homesick or ask to come back to Hanoi too soon." "Don't worry, I'm not some spoiled rich kid," he replied. Just as Dint finished speaking, there was a knock at the door. I guessed it was my mother-in-law, so I quickly went to open it. Mother! She came in and went straight to Dint, who was sitting nearby. Her eyes softened as she looked at her son. "Even though I'm worried about you coming back now, I remember you once said how much you liked the fresh air in the countryside. That's why I let you go home. Get well soon so I can be happy, son." After speaking, she turned to me. "Make sure you take good care of my son, all right?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied. "Go rest early tonight. You'll need your energy for tomorrow's trip." "Yes, ma'am." Once my mother-in-law left, I asked Dint, "What did you say to her to convince her to let you come with me?" "Nothing special. I just said I wanted to go." No wonder she was so against it before. But then she changed her mind. "Well, she does love me a lot," he said with a faint smile. "But love and control are very close sometimes," I teased. Din's expression darkened, his eyelashes fluttering as he lowered his head. Sometimes I could tell he had a lot on his mind. I knew I hadn't fully earned a place in his heart yet, so it was hard to open up. I tried to create a comfortable space whenever he was around, so he could say whatever he wanted. I'd always be ready to listen. The next morning, we took a taxi back to the countryside. Dink sat quietly, watching the world pass by outside the window. I had trouble sleeping the night before, probably from excitement about going home. After about 15 minutes, I rested my head against the seat and slowly drifted off. The car kept moving, and I slipped into deeper sleep. My head tilted too far left, almost banging against the window. Luckily, a hand gently steadied me. I leaned my head on his shoulder, not sure if that's why I slept so well. When we reached the village gate, the driver had to wake me. After he dropped us off at the small alley leading to my house, I paid the fare. Dink grabbed some bags from the trunk, and together we pushed open the rusty old iron gate. Just then, my mother came out of the house. When she saw us, her face lit up, and she ran over with joy. "You're finally home. Come inside and rest." "Yes, Mom," I said, greeting her. "Was the trip tiring? Let me carry your bags." "No, I can manage," I smiled. Mom's words spilled out like a daughter returning after a long marriage. Her excitement was clear. Inside, she set our things aside and hurried to make 2 glasses of sweet-sour iced sugar apple juice. "Drink this," she said kindly. "Thanks, Mom. Rest if you're tired. I'm going to catch a chicken from the yard to cook for you both." I was about to say I could help cook, but Dink beat me to it. "I'll do it, Mom." She was surprised. "Can you really? I thought city boys didn't know these things." "I'm not sure either, but let me try." "All right, come with me." So the 3 of us followed her to the backyard. She pointed to a rooster with a bright red comb and fierce eyes. "Here's the rooster, and there are some hens over there that lay eggs." I pulled down the wire fence and stepped in. There were over a dozen chickens, so catching one was tricky. Dint crouched like a wrestler ready to pounce, quietly waiting for the right moment. After a couple of seconds, he lunged, and the chickens scattered wildly, fluttering their wings and running every which way. I laughed, and when he looked at me, I told him it was because he was bad at catching them. "Then you try and see if you're better," he challenged. That bunch was tough, but I managed to catch one after a few rounds, holding it firmly by both legs. I raised it triumphantly, grinning at him. "See? I did it." Dint smiled and came closer to pluck a feather from the rooster's head, tossing it aside. His small gesture caught me off guard for a moment until he gently called, "Here, hold the chicken for me." "Okay," I said. Back at the house, Dint held the chicken while Mom prepared to slaughter and pluck it. Seeing him do these simple tasks with such joy made my heart warm. That lunch, some aunts and uncles joined us. Dint chatted comfortably with the men, polite and friendly. The meal was lively and full of laughter. In the afternoon, I took Dint to a grassy field nearby. Here, people usually bring their cows and buffalo to graze, so it was a familiar, peaceful scene. We saw some kids herding cattle, playing and laughing. Dint sighed. This really is the countryside. The air is fresh, and everything feels so peaceful. When I was little, I used to come here with friends, climb on the cows' backs, and watch their tails swish. Who would have thought the one riding the cow would cross the finish line first? I noticed a spark of interest in his eyes as I spoke. It's funny, isn't it? When I was a kid, all I did was study, and my sister too. Mom always wanted me to be the top of the class. If I ever ranked second, she'd scold me hard and wouldn't let me go out to play. Dad was quiet, serious, and pretty much left all the child-rearing to Mom. I knew Dink was speaking off the cuff, so even if his story wasn't perfectly structured, I understood the heart behind it. We walked over to a small rise in the ground and sat down. I asked him, "Is your present self running away from your past? Are you afraid to face something?" Dint stayed silent for a long moment before softly sighing and finally speaking. "A few years ago, I loved a girl. A lot. Deeply. But my mother didn't approve because her family was poor. More importantly, she wanted me to date and marry another girl she favored. I refused outright, even tried to hurt myself by cutting my wrist. Thankfully, they took me to the hospital in time and saved my life. Because of that, I gave in to my mother and ended the relationship. But then, a week after we broke up, she was in a car accident." His voice caught, and I felt the weight of his emotion pressing down on him. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with grief. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard before continuing. "That accident cruelly took her away from me forever. After that, I suffered severe psychological issues. The doctors had to restrain me to keep me from harming myself." Dint looked up at the sky, and I thought maybe, just maybe, heaven was where she was now. This man, strong and capable on the surface, had endured so much pain and pressure, so much that he'd chosen silence and distance to escape his mother's control. I realized how deeply wounded and exhausted he truly was. In the darkest moments, people might choose to end it all to find peace. But here he was, still alive, quietly carrying his scars. The more I thought about it, the more I felt for him. As his wife, I didn't know what to do except cry. Feeling my tears, Dink turned and looked at me, surprised. "Why are you crying?" "I'm just sad," I said, voice breaking. "It hurts thinking about the love you two shared." I started sobbing uncontrollably. No matter how much Dink comforted me, I couldn't stop. Finally, he held me close and let me cry as long as I needed. That afternoon, I cried in his arms until I was completely exhausted. All I could do was rest my head on his shoulder and soak up the last warm rays of the fading sunset. The scenery was beautiful. The distant bamboo groves, a slow-moving river dotted with floating water plants, and pale purple flowers adding color and life to the peaceful scene. After a while, I said, "Let's go home." "Okay," Dint agreed. I stood up, feeling a bit dizzy from sitting too long. Dint noticed and immediately reached out to steady me. "You're okay, right?" "Yeah, I just got dizzy from sitting too long." He didn't ask more. He took the lead, walking forward, and I watched him for a few seconds. There was a loneliness in his steps that made my heart ache. I hurried to catch up, a little shy, and took his hand. I half expected him to pull away, but he didn't. In fact, I felt a faint squeeze in return, like he wanted to hold on too. I smiled softly, holding his hand tighter, thinking to myself, I want to walk this road with him, hand in hand, growing old together. Back at home, I told Deaton to go shower first while I sat on the porch with the family's calico cat curled in my lap, petting it gently. My mother came out and sat beside me. "Is Deaton taking a shower now?" "Yes, Mom. He went first, then I'll shower later." This morning when your husband came back, I worried he might have trouble adjusting to country life, but he doesn't mind hard work at all. He actually said he loves the fresh air and peacefulness here, I said. Mom smiled, clearly pleased. "Good. So how's married life? Any news?" "News?" I blinked. She meant, "Are you pregnant yet?" "Not yet." I felt a familiar twinge, because just the other day my mother-in-law had asked me the same question. I had only smiled awkwardly. She even tried to teach me how to track ovulation to increase the chances of pregnancy. Now my own mother was asking. But honestly, Dink and I hadn't gone that far. Not even a kiss yet, let alone having a baby. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's a local herbal doctor nearby who makes effective medicine. Maybe I can take you there tomorrow to get some herbs." I shook my head. "No need, Mom, I'm not sick." "But you're over 30 now, and I worry," she said, like it was some kind of health tonic. "Mom, I'm only 32, I laughed. She opened her mouth to say more, but Dink came out of the bathroom and said, "I'm done. You go next." I looked at Mom and said, "No need for herbs. We'll have a baby soon, so please don't worry." I quickly grabbed my clothes and went to shower. Afterward, I saw Mom and Dint sitting together, whispering. When I walked out, they fell silent. "What's that? Were you two talking about me?" Mom chuckled. "Yeah, we were gossiping a bit." "What kind of gossip?" "Just sharing stories from when you were little." It was almost 7 p.m. Mom stood and said, "Time to eat." I glanced at Dint, who gave me a small smile before we all went inside. Judging by their expressions, I'm sure they'd been talking about me a lot. After dinner, my mother-in-law called to chat with us for a while before hanging up. Then Dink, Mom, and I sat down to watch TV. It was about 9 p.m. Suddenly, a shadow. The TV screen went black, plunging the room into darkness. My mother sighed and spoke up. "Power's out again. Has it been like this a lot lately?" "No, Mom," I replied. "It's usually fine around this time. Maybe a power line's down." "Go get my oil lamp," she said. "I'll light it." I turned on my phone flashlight to help her find it, aiming the beam toward the corner where she kept it. "Power outages are pretty common in the countryside," I told Dint, who was sitting beside me. "Not like in the city." "I get it," he said. He held the light while Mom lit the lamp. The small glow of the flame brought back memories. Me as a child during nights just like this, when the power would go out. Mom and I would lie on the bed, chatting and making shadow puppets with our hands. The shapes danced on the wall, and though I only remember how to make the dog one now, it's a memory that warms my heart. Sometimes we'd go to the kitchen, light a fire, and roast sweet potatoes. The thought suddenly lit up my mind. "Mom, do we still have sweet potatoes?" "We do," she said. "They're in the kitchen. Want some? I'll boil a few." "No, let me do it," I smiled. "I'll ask Dink to help." Turning to him, I said, "Dink, want to help me boil some sweet potatoes?" He raised an eyebrow but nodded. I stood and gently pulled him along to the kitchen. He held the light while I picked through the basket for the good ones, rinsed them in water, and dropped them into the pot. I left a couple aside to roast. Even though we had a gas stove, I wanted him to experience real countryside living, so I built the fire with dried leaves and wood. I expected him to just sit and watch, but to my surprise, he offered to do it himself. I stepped aside and let him take the spot in front of the fire. I sat on a low stool beside him, warming my hands near the flames, then tossed the 2 potatoes in to roast. "First time doing this?" he smiled. "Sort of. I've been camping before, but we used briquettes, not like this." I nodded. My eyes had unknowingly stayed on him, his tall nose, long eyelashes. My husband was handsome. The more I looked, the more drawn I felt. He caught me. "What are you staring at so hard for? Am I that good-looking?" he teased. I laughed and nodded. "Yes, you are. Very handsome." He didn't say anything, just smiled quietly. I hadn't expected to say it aloud, but somehow it felt right. That night, the 3 of us sat around a pot of boiled sweet potatoes, peeling and eating them. I bit into one and yelped, "Hot, but really good." "Eat slower," Mom warned. "You'll burn your tongue." I know. It's just so tasty I can't help it." Mom shook her head. "You're grown now, married, but still such a kid." Then turning to Ink, she added, "Eat up, son-in-law, you've been really sweet." "Thank you, Mom," he said with a warm smile. After the meal, we rested a bit, then headed to bed. The bed at my parents' house was small, nothing like the queen we had in Hanoi. When we lay down, our arms touched. Dint shifted and turned toward me, giving me more space. 15 minutes later, a fierce wind picked up outside. The window, which I had forgotten to latch, slammed shut with a loud bang. I jumped up, hurried across the room, and latched it securely. Crawling back under the covers, I shivered at the sound of the wind and distant thunder. Rain was coming, heavy rain. Suddenly, lightning cracked the sky, followed by a thunderclap so loud I instinctively threw myself into Deaton's arms. My heart pounded in fear. But by the time the rumble faded, I realized something. He had already wrapped his arms around me. Now my heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something else. Was this what real comfort felt like? Real warmth? The scent of him, something faint and clean, made me feel that even if the sky were to fall, I wouldn't be afraid. The rain poured all night. By morning it had stopped, and the sun peeked shyly over the eastern horizon. Dew clung to the leaves, catching sunlight and glittering like tiny crystals. I stood in the front yard, arms stretched wide, breathing in the fresh morning scent of the countryside. As I twisted from side to stretch, I noticed it standing behind me. "Oh, you're up." He stepped beside me. "Just got up. What's for breakfast?" "Whatever you want." I said, "Doesn't have to be fancy. How about those leftover sweet potatoes?" "Perfect." After our simple breakfast, the whole family headed to my youngest uncle's house for Grandma's memorial service. Honestly, after the land dispute over the pond out front, I hadn't been too fond of him, but my mom's always been the type to prioritize harmony. At the house, everyone pitched in. I plucked chickens and prepped vegetables, while others cooked and set up. Conversation flowed freely, gossip bouncing from one story to the next. Honestly, men gossip just as much as women these days. While picking greens, I overheard someone talking about Hui, the daughter of Mrs. Num from the village. Apparently, she was only in 11th grade and already 5 months pregnant. Wedding was set for the end of next month. "Kids these days," one aunt said. "Barely 18 and already rushing into marriage." At least her family agreed to the wedding. Another added, "Some families would have forced her to abort so she could keep studying. That's a sin. And if the guy's side refused responsibility, the girl would be the one to suffer." A while later, one of my aunts turned to me. "Sweetie, want to go see the new fortune teller in the village this afternoon? Everyone says she's amazing." I shook my head politely. "No thanks." "Come on, just try it. People are saying she's always right. You might find out when you'll have a baby." "Babies are a gift from heaven," another chimed in. "But better try soon. Age makes it harder." I forced a smile. "Yes, Auntie." They meant well, but the constant talk about good news was starting to wear me down. I hadn't felt pressured before, but now I couldn't shake the unease. That afternoon, the family gathered for the feast. 4 full tables of food, laughter, and chatter. I sat with the aunts. Dinton was at the men's table, being poured shot after shot. Maybe it was the mood or the alcohol, but by the time we got home he was tipsy and unsteady. I helped him to bed. As he lay down, I heard him mumble softly, "Fung, I miss you. I miss you so much." The name hit me like a slap. For a few seconds, I just stood there, stunned. Then, like a creeping chill, a strange discomfort began to take root in my chest. Why does my chest ache like this? I placed my hand over my heart, trying to soothe myself with thoughts like Dio. "It's okay. You knew he once loved someone deeply. It's not a big deal. It'll pass. You'll be fine." Trying to calm my emotions, I stood up, grabbed a wet tissue, and gently wiped his face. Then, without a word, I quietly stepped outside. That evening after dinner, I picked up my phone and walked out to the porch. Inside the house, Mom and Dint were watching TV. Noticing that I was sitting out there alone, our cat strolled over and rubbed against my back, trying to comfort me. I picked it up, cradled it in my lap, and softly whispered, "What's wrong, huh? Am I so lonely that even you came out to keep me company?" It meowed in response, as if it understood. Still petting the cat, I murmured, "Thanks, really." Just then, a familiar figure came and sat down beside me. It was Dint. His eyes met mine briefly before drifting down to the cat. "Can I hold it?" he asked. "Of course." I gently passed the cat from my lap to his. It settled peacefully in his arms. I turned my gaze away and let the silence stretch for about 5 minutes before he asked, "Something wrong? You don't seem like yourself tonight. You've been quiet. You look a bit pale." I shook my head, still staring straight ahead. "No, I'm fine. Just tired." "Really?" I was going to ignore him, pretend I didn't hear the concern in his voice. But something about the way he asked again, so gently, so sincerely, made the frustration inside me boil over. "The girl you used to love, her name was Fung, wasn't it?" He looked startled but nodded. "Yeah. How do you know?" "You called her name in your sleep. I know I shouldn't care, that technically we're just husband and wife in name only, but it still hurt to hear." As I spoke those words, a sharp ache stabbed at my chest again. I took a deep breath and tilted my head back, trying to keep the tears from falling. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." I let out a bitter chuckle. "If anyone's at fault, it's me, for falling for you first." Admitting that felt like tearing open a wound. I stood up, walked back to the room, and lay down on the bed. What could I say? I was already married. And yet here I was, falling for someone again. Maybe this started as sympathy. Maybe it grew into love. But whatever it is now, it's too late. I won't blame him for not loving me back. All I can hope for is that one day he'll understand, and maybe, just maybe, return my feelings. I don't need him to erase the memories of her. Just keep them tucked away like a cherished chapter in the past. Because if he's still haunted by guilt over her loss, how could he ever love me wholeheartedly? I lay on my side, facing the wall. Every now and then, I'd let out a sigh, like someone nursing a heartbreak. I didn't even realize when I finally drifted off. The next morning, I woke up and didn't see Dean beside me. The clock on my phone read 5:30 a.m. I got out of bed, folded the mosquito net, and stepped outside. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Dean, carrying bundles of vegetables, walking alongside my mom. "Where are you two going?" I asked, surprised. "Our garden produced more than we can eat," Mom replied. "So I picked some bunches, and Denton's helping me take them to the market." "You need help?" I offered. "Nah," she said, smiling. "He's been helping me since dawn. We're just walking them over now." I watched them go, him and my mom, side by side down the dirt path. The village market wasn't far, just a short walk away. Seeing how easily he blended into this rural life made me feel like bringing him home had been the right choice. I brushed my teeth, washed up, and stood in the yard, taking in every little detail of the house, the trees, the air, trying to memorize it all. We were heading back to Hanoi that afternoon, and I already felt a pang of longing. At 4 p.m., sitting on the bus, I pressed my face against the window, watching my mother wave us off. Her eyes were glassy with tears. She spent her whole life raising me, sacrificing everything. When I got married, she never asked for much, just that I live a happy life. She didn't want me to end up like her, raising a child alone. Thinking about it made my tears finally fall. Sensing it, Dint reached into his backpack and silently handed me a tissue. Without looking directly at me, he still knew. I took it, gave a small nod, and whispered, "Thanks." Back in Hanoi, as Dint unlocked the gate, my mother-in-law rushed out. "You're back," she exclaimed, eyes scanning her son up and down. "Just a few days and you're already tanned like that. I knew it. Country life doesn't suit you." Then she turned to me with her usual sharp glance. "Go prepare dinner. I just got home myself and haven't cooked anything." I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Upstairs, I changed into something more comfortable, tied my hair into a bun, and headed to the kitchen. When I asked what she wanted to eat, she requested simple dishes, fried eggs, sour fish soup, and boiled pork. Easy enough. I got everything ready quickly. At dinner, she mentioned she'd be going on a trip with her friends soon. She reminded me, repeatedly, to take good care of Dean, keep the house clean, and manage everything while she was away. I nodded at every instruction, trying to reassure her. After cleaning up, I showered, crawled into bed, and fell asleep almost instantly. This morning was my first day back at work after 3 days off to visit home. I brought a little gift, local snacks and treats, and as soon as I walked in, Hung came running over. "Let me carry that for you, sis." "Sure," I laughed. "Just a little something from the countryside. Don't expect too much." "Don't say that. You know you're my favorite," she teased, grabbing the bag and giving me a big hug. "You were only gone 3 days, but it felt like forever," she pouted. I gently pushed her away, laughing. All right. Go share the treats with everyone." "Yes, ma'am. Oh, by the way, the bosses are throwing a party this weekend. You coming?" I haven't been able to go the last few times. But this time it's just here at the restaurant. No need to go anywhere. Please come. It'll be fun. The reason I never joined the past gatherings was, because my mother-in-law is rather strict, I usually avoid joining the others for group outings. But this time she happened to be away on vacation. "Should I reconsider?" I asked. "Come on, go with us," my friend urged. "I'll think about it," I replied. That weekend I made dinner for my husband and slipped out to meet the group at a seafood hot pot party. We'd all chipped in for the ingredients, so the spread was generous and lively. I was sitting next to Hang, dipping food into the steaming pot when she nudged me. "Everything looks so good. Isn't it a waste not to have some wine? Just a little. Come on, drink with me." "I don't really drink," I hesitated. "Then just try." She smiled and poured me a shot before I could protest. A few of the women stood up, raising their glasses, shouting, 1, 2, 3, cheers! Like it was college all over again. The first sip hit hard. It burned, the alcohol rushing straight up my nose. I swallowed quickly and shoved a mouthful of food in to dull the sting. After one drink, Hang sighed beside me. I'm just done. I had a fight with my boyfriend again. No wonder you wanted to drink, I said. Seriously, we fight over the dumbest things lately. It's like, we can't stop. I smiled, a little wistfully. Ah, young love, so much drama, so many storms out of nowhere. Then, as if on cue, I thought of Din. Of that night he drunkenly called me by another woman's name. I didn't want to dwell on it, but there it was. When Hang offered another round, I tried to say no, but ended up knocking back the whole thing in one gulp. Wait, I thought you weren't drinking? She laughed. Pour me another. Life's ridiculous, I muttered. And so I drank. Until the world blurred around the edges. When my phone started ringing, it took me a few moments to even realize it was mine. Hello? I slurred. It's late. Have you gone home yet? Who is this? I snapped. It's too late to be calling people. Then I hung up without waiting for a response. I turned to Hang to continue our drinking, but she was crying now. And somehow that just made me laugh. I dropped my head to the table and sat in silence. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Do you? A familiar voice said. I looked up. Dean? I blinked at him, surprised. What are you doing here? You've had enough. I'm taking you home. I don't want to go home, but his voice changed, low, steady, commanding. It's late. Come home with me. I nodded like a child, lifted my arms. Carry me? I asked, half whining. He didn't say anything, just turned around and crouched down. I wrapped my arms around his neck and let him hoist me onto his back. As we left, he politely said goodbye to the others. At home, Din carried me up to our bedroom and gently laid me down. I'll make you some ginger tea, it'll help, he said. But as he turned to go, I grabbed his hand. Don't go, I whispered. I'm not drunk. I'm really not. I only had a little, just a tiny bit. I swear I'm not drunk. My face crumpled. The tears I'd held back for days finally came. Why is it that every time your mom makes things hard for me, you say nothing? Why do I always have to hear questions like, any baby news yet? Why do you hide, acting like some clueless coward? Tears streamed down my face. I was jealous, so jealous when you called out someone else's name, and I don't even know why I love you. I just do. And I don't know what to do with that. I looked up at him, eyes full of pain. So please, don't run anymore. Just come back. Be the man I married. The tears wouldn't stop. My vision blurred. Then a warm hand wiped them away. Din's face appeared again, closer this time. I'm sorry, he said softly. I'm so sorry. I couldn't wait any longer. I leaned forward and kissed him. At first, he was startled. His hands tried to push me away, but only for a moment. Then something shifted. He kissed me back. One hand moved behind my neck, drawing me closer. We tumbled onto the bed, clothes falling piece by piece. That night felt like the longest night of my life since moving into his family's home. The next morning, I woke up alone. Din was standing out on the balcony. I looked down. I was fully dressed. I vaguely remembered him cleaning me up, redressing me after everything. I got out of bed, texted my boss at the restaurant to say I'd be late, and stepped outside. He turned when he heard me. You're awake? Yeah. Feeling okay? I felt my cheeks flush. I shook my head shyly. I'm fine. Last night, you said a lot. Because you were drunk. Don't worry about it. No, he said, I'm glad you said what you did. I should have heard it a long time ago. I've been distant. I married you, but I never tried to build a real home with you. I'm sorry. That's on me. He took a deep breath and looked away. I know people keep asking if we have any baby news. I know it's hard. And even though I haven't fully opened my heart to you, can we try? I want to try. Even though you're here with me, I still haven't found the courage to break out of this shell I've built around myself. Give me a little more time. When I've sorted myself out, I promise I'll be the husband you deserve. His voice was earnest, sincere. I couldn't help it. My eyes welled up again. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms tightly around him. I'll wait. I promise I'll wait until you're ready to step out of that shell. I love you so much. This man, my husband, he could have had a picture-perfect life. A beautiful wife, well-behaved kids, a stable career. He had the education, the charm, the smarts, and yet, he was mine. Even now, he's still like a child, caught in an endless game of hide and seek, unable to find his way out of the maze that is his life. I tightened my grip, not on anything in particular, but as if hugging him more tightly in my heart. I told myself I have to hold on to him, no matter what. Soft music fades in. And I meant it. He sat up on the bed, gently lifted my leg, placed it on his lap, and began to massage it. I was clearly spoiled. Having him massage my aching feet only made me greedier. "Babe, can you rub my back too? My shoulders are killing me," I asked sweetly. Just as we were wrapped in this warm little moment of affection, my mother-in-law walked in from the hallway. "What on earth are you two doing?" she barked. I jumped, startled by her raised voice. Quickly pulling my leg back, I sat up. "Mom, you didn't knock." Her expression was stern, almost angry, but when she glanced over at my husband, she seemed to rein herself in. Forcing a tight smile, she said, "Anyway, the kitchen floor's still dirty. I came up to ask if you could help clean it." "Yes, ma'am, I'll be down in just a moment," I replied quickly. After she left, I turned to my husband. His cheerful face had gone flat. I forced a laugh to lighten the mood. "It's okay, just lie down and rest." Later, as I scrubbed the kitchen floor, I heard her sigh heavily behind me. "Housework, cooking. These are a woman's duties. Just a little ache, and you're already whining and making your husband massage you? That's not acceptable, you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, biting back my frustration. As I stood up, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. We were both women. We'd both lived through the pain of being daughters-in-law. Shouldn't that lead to understanding and compassion? But no. My mother-in-law seemed irritated simply because her son had been rubbing my leg. I wondered, did she ever think back to her younger days, those exhausted evenings when all she wanted was her husband's comfort? I know we all carry our own selfishness, but just once, I wish she could step into my shoes. When I returned to the bedroom, my husband was sitting on the bed, waiting. "You're done?" he asked. "Yeah. Your mom's pretty upset," I said. He hesitated, then added, "You know, Grandma was really strict. Mom didn't have it easy as a daughter-in-law either. She got pregnant before the wedding, so Grandma never respected her." I looked at him. Clearly, he'd heard everything that was said downstairs. And now he was trying to explain, to help me understand that part of the reason his mother acted this way was because she'd once been hurt too. So, someone who's been wounded ends up wounding others? Is that what made him so tender toward her? "It's like I've said," he murmured. "Right or wrong, she's still my mom." "I get it," I replied softly. "Thanks for telling me. I do feel a little better now." I lay down, drained, and drifted off without even realizing it. When I finally stirred, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. I went downstairs to prepare dinner. After we ate, I returned to the room to grab my clothes for a shower. Freshly bathed, I collapsed onto the bed. My husband glanced over. "You okay? You don't look too good." "I'm fine," I whispered. "I'll sleep it off. I'll feel better in the morning." I pulled the blanket over my stomach and fell into a heavy sleep. Sometime in the night, I was jolted awake by sharp, stabbing pain in my abdomen. Sweat beaded across my forehead. I could feel something wet between my legs. I reached out, nudging my husband weakly. "Babe, something's wrong. I'm in so much pain." After that, everything became hazy. I heard him calling out my name in panic. Someone slapped my cheeks lightly, trying to keep me awake, but I was too exhausted to respond. Everything went dark. I don't know how much time passed before I came to. The sharp smell of antiseptic filled my nose. My eyes fluttered open to see the hospital ceiling above me. A familiar voice called out, panicked and trembling. "Babe, you're awake?" I turned to my left. My husband sat there, pale and exhausted. Where are we? What happened?" I asked. "You're in the hospital," he said. "Are you still in pain?" I shook my head slowly. "Not really." Then I noticed the IV dripping into my arm. Something felt very wrong. "This is a hospital? Am I sick?" He hesitated, his eyes clouded with something hard to name. Finally, he let out a long sigh. "It was an ectopic pregnancy," he said gently. "The fallopian tube ruptured. You lost a lot of blood. The doctor said, if I'd brought you even a little later, they wouldn't have been able to save you." I swallowed hard. The words sat heavy in my chest. Ectopic pregnancy, ruptured, lost a lot of blood. "So, I was pregnant?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. "But the baby," he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." I reached a trembling hand down to my belly. My eyes brimmed with tears as I mouthed the words in my heart. "Baby, are you really gone?" I had told myself I wouldn't cry. I really thought I could be strong. But the tears came anyway, first quiet, then louder, until I was sobbing into the blanket, covering my head as if I could hide from the pain. Why? Why is life so cruel? God, this was my baby. The one I had hoped for, prayed for. Why would you take it away like this? The physical pain was one thing, but the heartbreak, it was 1,000 times worse. I had tried so hard to stay optimistic through everything life threw at me. But that night, I truly broke. My husband sat beside me, letting me cry for what felt like forever. Then gently, he pulled the blanket down from my head and took my hand. "You're still weak. Don't cry too much," he whispered. He reached up to wipe the tears from my cheeks. "I know this hurts more than anything, but you have to take care of yourself. We'll try again someday. We'll have another baby." "Okay," I said softly. Completely worn out, I lay there staring up at the ceiling. My mind went blank. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to think. It felt like time itself had stopped. The entire day passed in that heavy silence. The only comfort was that my husband never left my side. That night I told him, "You should go home and rest. I'll be okay on my own." But he refused, not even a trace of annoyance in his eyes. Bon Chen lay down next to me on the narrow hospital bed. He wrapped his arms around me, letting time quietly pass into the late night. Neither of us could fall asleep. Restless, I turned to him and whispered, "Hey, are you still awake?" "I am. You too?" "Yeah, I just can't sleep. Everything happens so fast, it's overwhelming." "I know. When they rushed you into the ER, I was scared. Terrified, actually. It reminded me of when I had to wait outside the operating room for Fuang. I've never told you this, but this is the second time I could have become a father." He paused, his voice softer now. Fuang was about 2 months pregnant when she came to tell me. We'd already broken up, but when she found out, she took a cab to my office, just to let me know. But the cab got into an accident. She and the baby, neither made it. Hearing that, I felt my throat tighten. Tears welled up again. I turned to face him, not hesitating for a second. I pulled him into a tight hug. "You poor thing, how can life be so cruel to you, twice over?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for not being able to protect our child." He reached out, brushing my hair back, his other hand gently rubbing my back. "No, it's not your fault. If anything, I should be the one thanking you for making it back to me safely. Thank you." That night might have been the most emotionally raw night of our lives. Two people, each carrying their own scars, found comfort and healing in one another. As for his mother, from what Bon Chen told me, she had been with him when he brought me to the hospital. When the doctor confirmed I was stable, she simply went home. She didn't even come in to visit. Well, not exactly. She did show up again on the day I was discharged. But not to see me. She was there to ask the doctor about my fertility. Only after being told I could still get pregnant normally did she leave, visibly relieved. When we returned home, I expected to head straight upstairs and rest. But Bon Chen surprised me. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. "What is it?" she asked. "Let's sit down first. I need to tell you something." The three of us sat in the living room, Bon Chen and I on one side, his mother facing us. "Go ahead, son, I'm listening." He looked at me briefly before turning to her. His voice was firm. "Mom, I want us to move out." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about? Why would you want to move out? Is this her idea? Has she been poisoning your mind?" "No, Mom. This is my decision. It has nothing to do with her." "What kind of nonsense is this?" she barked. "This is your home. You've lived here your whole life, and you're still recovering." "I'm fine now. I've been fine for a while, Mom. I just didn't tell you." His mother froze, visibly shaken. Her voice trembled with rage. "Say that again. Say it to my face." "I've recovered, Mom. We can take care of ourselves now. Please, let us have our own space." "Oh, how convenient," she scoffed. "After everything I did to raise you, this is the thanks I get. You want to abandon your own mother?" Then she turned her sharp eyes on me. "And you, who the hell do you think you are? What makes you so special that my son would suddenly forget everything he owes me?" "Mom," Bon Chen said calmly but firmly, "even now, you don't see what's wrong." "Wrong? What did I do wrong?" "I raised my child. I did my duty." He took a deep breath. "Did you know there was a time I contemplated suicide? More than 10 times. You always pushed me, pressured me to be the best, to always be number one. Sometimes the stress of solving math problems wasn't half as bad as the stress of coming home to you. I grew up afraid of you. Even as an adult, you still tried to control every aspect of my life. I've always wondered, if you hadn't torn Fuang and me apart, maybe we'd still be happy together now. He looked up, his voice breaking slightly. Over time, I started to fear you, Mom. The person I once loved and respected most became the person I feared the most. And now that I'm married, I don't want you to treat my wife the way you treated me. Please, let us go. His mother suddenly stood up and hurled a ceramic bowl at him. It hit him squarely on the forehead with a loud crack. "You ungrateful brat," she screamed. "After everything I've done for you." I gasped and rushed to him. Blood trickled from his brow. "Are you okay?" I cried, panic in my voice. "I'm all right," he said gently, squeezing my hand. Then he turned to his mother, calm but resolute. "We'll be moving out soon. I'm taking my wife upstairs to rest." He led me to the staircase, and we went up together. Once we were in the room, I looked at him, stunned. "Are we really moving out?" I asked. "I want you to live in peace. I think it's finally time for me to live on my own terms." "Okay," I said softly. "Let me treat your wound first." That evening, he said he was meeting a friend and headed out. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw his mother. "Can I come in?" she asked. Sure, but Bon Chen just stepped out." "I know," she said. "I came to talk to you." She walked in and sat calmly on the edge of the bed. Despite her composed demeanor, I couldn't help feeling wary. After all, this was the same woman who had thrown a bowl at her own son's head. I sat down quietly on a nearby chair, waiting for her to speak. "That cut on his forehead, was it bad?" "Just a surface wound. Nothing serious," I replied politely. She sighed. "So, moving out, that's really his decision?" "Yes, ma'am, it is." "Could you talk him out of it?" she asked, her voice almost pleading. "I can't bear the thought of living alone in that big house." I hesitated. Just then, my mother-in-law's phone rang. The sharpness in her gaze immediately softened as she glanced down at the screen. Holding the phone up, she squinted at the caller ID and answered, "Hello, yes, this is she." "What? Din got into an accident?" The voice on the other end said he'd just been rushed to the emergency room and someone had called using Din's phone. Both my mother-in-law and I froze. Our eyes locked in mutual terror before we scrambled out of the house and flagged down a taxi. Inside the car, as I urged the driver to go faster, my mother-in-law reached for my hand with her own trembling one. Her eyes were glassy and tears welled up. She stammered through her panic. "Sweetheart, I'm so scared. If something happens to him, I don't know if I could go on." I was terrified, too. The caller said Din was crossing the street when a car lost control and hit him. But seeing my mother-in-law like this, I knew I had to stay strong, for both of us. I blinked back tears, reached out with my other hand, and held hers tightly. "It's going to be okay, Mom," I said, steadying my voice. "Din is lucky. He's strong. He'll come back to us. I know he will." When we arrived at the hospital, I helped her out of the car and rushed her to the emergency wing. In no time, we were standing in front of the operating room doors. Seeing one of Din's friends there, my mother-in-law ran up to him. "How is he? What's going on?" "He's in surgery right now, ma'am. We just have to wait." I gently sat her down in a nearby chair and took a breath, trying to stay calm. "Don't worry, Mom," I said, trying to reassure both of us. "He'll pull through. You know him. He's always been the responsible one, the thoughtful one. He wouldn't leave us like this. He just wouldn't." Time dragged on. The doors to the operating room stayed shut, unyielding. I couldn't stop myself from thinking back to the night I ended up in the ER. "Din, were you this worried too? When I was the one inside that emergency room, were you sitting out here, heart racing, barely able to breathe? It felt like forever before the doors finally opened." My mother-in-law and I rushed over to the doctor. "How's my son?" she asked, voice trembling. "He's stable for now. The danger has passed, but we're moving him to intensive care for monitoring." We both bowed our heads repeatedly, thanking the doctor over and over. The crushing weight of fear that had been pressing on us finally began to lift. But just when we thought we could breathe again, Din's heart suddenly stopped in the middle of the night. I was standing nearby as the doctors frantically tried to revive him. I couldn't move, couldn't even cry. My mind was frozen, locked in place. Only when the heart monitor beeped again, signaling a return of rhythm, did I finally exhale and collapse to the floor, my body utterly drained. When my mother-in-law returned from the restroom, she found me sitting on the ground like a ghost. "What's wrong, dear?" "What happened?" I shook my head. "Nothing, Mom. Everything's okay. I need to use the restroom real quick." I rushed to the bathroom, shut the door, put the lid down on the toilet, and sat. That's when the sobs hit me. I cried like a child, full of fear. I had been strong for too long. From the moment I heard about the accident, I'd been holding it all in. But seeing Din nearly lose his life, it shattered something in me. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I had to cry. A month has passed since the accident. Din still hasn't woken up, but I visit him every day, talking to him, telling him stories, sharing my thoughts like he could hear me. My mother-in-law has fallen ill from the stress, so now I not only care for Din, but also for her. I even had to take a break from our family's noodle shop to manage everything at home. One day, I brought her a bowl of hot porridge. "Here, Mom, please eat something and take your medicine so you can get better," I said. She sat up slowly. Her face looked thinner, pale. She sighed and asked, "Have you seen Din yet today? Any changes?" "Yes, I have. He's still sleeping peacefully. Maybe he just misses you too much to wake up," I joked gently. She gave me a weak smile. "I always thought I was a good mother. Always so proud of having raised two well-behaved, successful kids. Always bragging to friends about how right my parenting was. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I failed Din." Her tears slipped down her cheeks, and without realizing it, I started crying too. After a moment of silence, I took a deep breath and held out the porridge. "Please eat, Mom. You have to stay strong. He'll need you when he wakes up." She looked up at me, guilt flickering in her eyes. "You're right," she said softly. I waited with her while she finished the porridge and took her medicine. Once she was settled, I left to tidy up the house. She recovered after 3 days and soon started visiting Din in the hospital more regularly, talking to him, whispering hope into his ears. One day Hoi Thuong, my sister-in-law, came by. Both my mother-in-law and I were home. "Hey, sis," she said. "Are you free this weekend? My housekeeper's going back to her hometown for 2 days. I was wondering if you could help out at our place. I'll pay you 500,000 VND a day, so $1 million total. What do you say?" Before I could answer, my mother-in-law stepped in sharply. "No," she said, walking out of her room. Her tone was firm. "Your sister-in-law is already exhausted from taking care of your brother. She doesn't have the energy to work as your maid, too. Hire someone else." "Mom, she looks fine to me. Why not let her earn some money?" I said no, and that's final. Hoi Thuong pouted, clearly irritated. Why are you being so dramatic? I'm paying her. It's not like I'm asking for free labor. And what if I hire a stranger and they steal from me?" My mother-in-law's voice rose. "Then find someone else. Your sister-in-law is not available. You're being so unreasonable, Mom." "No, you're the one being unreasonable, Hoi Thuong. Since your brother was hospitalized, how many times have you come to visit him? I was sick for days. Did you even notice?" "You were sick?" "I didn't know. I've been busy," she muttered. Didn't realize it was serious. "Just a cold," my mother-in-law said calmly. "But thanks to your sister-in-law taking care of me, I recovered." At that moment, Hoi Thuong's phone rang. She picked up the call, said a few words, and left in a hurry. I turned to look at my mother-in-law. For the first time, she had stood up for me in front of her own daughter. I couldn't help but feel a deep, quiet gratitude blooming inside my chest. That evening, I went to visit Din. I immediately began telling him the good news, talking as I gently wiped his face with a damp cloth. When I finished the story, I asked him a question I'd repeated countless times during those long days. "Sweetheart, you'll wake up soon, won't you? Mom's changed. She realizes now that she was wrong. Please, wake up. I want to see my husband healthy again, laughing and smiling. I want us to welcome our beautiful children into the world together. So please, I'm begging you." I said so much. I said everything, but all I got in return was silence. He didn't stir, didn't speak. I smiled and whispered to myself, "It's okay. If not today, maybe tomorrow. I'm not giving up. I'll never give up." As night settled over the hospital, I stayed by his bedside, my head resting against the mattress. I must have dozed off without realizing it, but my hand was still holding his. Maybe I held it too tightly because suddenly his fingers twitched. His eyelashes fluttered. In that half-asleep haze, I felt something brush against my cheek. I thought it was a mosquito and reached up to swat it away, only to grab hold of a hand. A human hand. I startled awake, sitting upright and staring directly at him. He was looking at me. I thought I was dreaming. It had to be a hallucination. I almost rubbed my eyes to check, but then I felt it. His hand squeezing mine. He was awake. My voice trembled with joy. "Dean? Honey, you're awake? You really woke up? I was so scared you wouldn't." I stood up, crying and laughing at the same time, and threw my arms around him. "I was so afraid you'd never wake up. I was terrified." Dean ran a hand through my hair and murmured, "Silly girl, of course I had to wake up. I have to be here, to have a baby with you." I pulled back and stared at him, stunned. "Is it really you?" I turned to go call the doctor, but before I could take a step, he pulled me back down onto the bed, his hand holding mine firmly. "What's going on?" I asked, still a little dazed. And then he leaned in and kissed me, soft and simple. Not long, but deep enough to set my heart racing. He rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "What time is it?" "I'm not sure. Maybe around 1 or 2 in the morning." "Then let's sleep. You can call the doctor later." "No way," I said, starting to get up. "What if something happens again while we wait?" I hurried off to find the doctor. After a brief examination, he said Din was stable. He'd need a few more tests in the morning, but overall, he was okay. The month of fear, the crushing pressure I'd carried, it all finally lifted. When the doctor left, Din patted the empty space next to him on the bed. "Come lie down," he said. "For what?" "To sleep with me, of course. It's been forever since I got to hold my wife." I laughed softly, teasing. "What? Are you afraid I won't lie next to you because you haven't showered in a month?" "You're mean," he joked. I crawled into bed beside him and admitted, You know what? I think I might actually be pretty funny." He chuckled. "I'm just so happy you're okay," I said. "Mom's opened her heart a little too. I'll wake up early tomorrow and call her." "You've been through so much," he said gently. "I really have," I sighed. "Especially the moment when your heart suddenly stopped. I thought I was going to die too. It was horrible." He gave me a quiet, grateful smile. That kind of smile that says everything without needing a single word. And just like that, we said nothing more. Because in that moment, words weren't necessary. We had each other, safe and sound. That was enough. 3 months later, he took me to a cemetery and stopped in front of a beautiful headstone with the smiling face of a young woman engraved on it. "This is Phuong's grave," he said. I finally understood. He placed a bouquet of flowers down gently, lit a stick of incense, and knelt in front of the grave. "It's your birthday today. Happy birthday, Phuong. Oh, and I almost forgot, this is Shu, my wife." He looked at me with a soft smile. "I've learned how to love her the way I once loved you. So please, be happy wherever you are." I stood quietly beside him, not a hint of jealousy in my heart. On the contrary, I was happy for him. Happy that he could finally face his past and carry it with him into the present, becoming the amazing husband I now had. As we walked away, he took my hand. I glanced back at Phuong's grave and whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Don't worry. I'll love him and care for him for the rest of my life." On the way home, Din squeezed my hand. "Let's go on a trip." "A trip? Where to?" "Anywhere you want. Domestic or international. I want to go everywhere with you before work drags me back in." "How about Phu Quoc?" I said. "I really want to see the ocean." "Wherever you want," he replied, "as long as we're together." I leaned my head on his shoulder, and in that moment, every day felt like a blessing. With him by my side, I had everything I needed. 2 months later, I stepped out of the bathroom holding a pregnancy test, 2 bright lines. My hands trembled with excitement. I wanted to tell him immediately. I tried to text, but my fingers kept shaking, and the message came out all wrong. Frustrated, I just snapped a photo of the test and sent it to him. He saw it, but didn't respond. I felt a little childish, even petty. I pouted and tossed my phone aside, heading downstairs to tell my mother-in-law instead. She wasn't there. Disappointed, I wandered into the kitchen and opened the fridge. My eyes caught a plate of green mango slices, and suddenly, I had to have them. I'm not usually into sour things, but my pregnancy cravings made them taste like heaven. I dipped one in chili salt and took a bite. And then... the front door burst open. I heard hurried footsteps pounding through the house, And then, breathless and wild-eyed like someone who'd just been chased, Din appeared. His eyes lit up with a sudden spark. "You're really pregnant?" "Yes," I nodded, smiling. "I just took a test earlier. 2 lines." At first he froze in stunned silence, then sprang up and shouted with joy. "I'm going to be a dad! A real dad!" He lifted me up and gently sat me on the kitchen table. Leaning down, he kissed my belly with a loud smooch. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, baby. Thank you, little one. And thank you, my wife. I love you. So, so much." Then he kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. I couldn't help but laugh. Seeing him this happy, like a child discovering the world for the first time, made my heart swell. "You're happy?" I asked softly. "Of course I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been." I wrapped my arms around him and whispered, "Me too." Extra chapter, the husband's inner monologue. These days, everything develops too fast. Kids grow up with phones and tablets in hand, forming complex thoughts long before they understand the world. But back in my day, things were simpler. In our little alley, weekends meant soccer matches, hide and seek, and kids laughing until dusk. You could hear the shouts and giggles from blocks away. But my voice? It was rarely among them. I was inside, surrounded by books. My mother would say, "Study hard so you can make something of yourself. Get into college. Make us proud. If you don't, you'll end up a laborer." The older I got, the more pressure I felt. Grades weren't just numbers. They were everything. Even when I was sick, she'd pile homework on my desk, assignments from school, private tutors, even foreign textbooks she imported. I was exhausted. But I kept going, just to see her smile. My dad, quiet and mild-mannered, would come home late and say little. Mom made most of the decisions. He just followed. My younger sister, Hoi Thuong, was always a little diva, adorable and charming since she was a kid. As she got older, she only became more polished. She studied well, looked good, and eventually married into wealth. I was happy for her. We weren't especially close. Our personalities clashed too much. Whenever we tried to talk, it ended in arguments. We never really shared anything meaningful. There was no deep sibling bond. In 12th grade, I wrote a suicide note. The pressure to perform, to pick a college that pleased my mom while still staying true to myself, it was crushing. I climbed to the top of the tallest building near our house, ready to jump. But a janitor saw me. He rushed over, pulled me back, and said, "Kid, if you die, it's over. But the people you leave behind, they live on in pain, wondering why. My daughter took her own life last year, postpartum depression. I'll never be the same." He looked me in the eyes. "If something hurts, talk to your parents. Don't carry it alone. Don't suffer in silence like that." His words saved me, but for 3 more years, I still couldn't say a thing. I was too much of a coward to protect what I loved, especially Phuong, the girl I once cared for deeply. All the pain, the heartbreak, I just ran. Far away. I hid inside my own home like a fool. I thought that's how I'd live forever, like a ghost of a man. Until I met her. We were both in our 30s, no longer young, but mature. We knew who we were, and more importantly, we treated each other with kindness and respect. She had that small-town innocence, honest, modest, and gentle. Her eyes were clear, her smile radiant. People remembered her without even trying. Our marriage was arranged. I said yes because, well, I figured it didn't matter who I married, but she saw something in me. Loneliness. We stumbled into each other's lives. I was indifferent. She took a leap of faith. It was like we both had nothing to lose. She put up with my mother's difficult nature, never raised her voice, never argued. Just swallowed the pain quietly. I stayed silent too, but I always noticed. Her joy, her sadness, I could sense it all. And over time I started to find her endearing. Quirky, even. Her face appeared in my mind, even when she wasn't there. She slipped into my memories like a gentle breeze, not healing my wounds, but listening. Truly listening. And somehow that was enough to make me want to protect her from feeling pain like mine. So I chose to stand up, to fight back. I asked my mother to let us move out. For her, for us. Now I finally get to live as my true self. My mother has grown too. She now loves and accepts my wife. She's even acknowledged her past mistakes. I'm happy, truly happy, and so grateful. She's cried for me, many times, I know. Those silent sobs in the bathroom didn't go unnoticed. But listen, my love, from now on I'll love you and protect you always. Women are deeply sensitive souls. When a woman cries for someone, those tears are precious. They deserve to be cherished. Thank you. The sky today is beautiful. Dark clouds gathering, heavy with rain, but somehow still breathtaking.